Welcome to Friday Q&A. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you have questions for next week, please let me know in the comments. We survived our trip to Melbourne over the weekend. I think I slept for about 2 hours, which was not ideal, and I've been paying the price all week for that, but had an amazing show to all of you guys who came out to Cherry Bar on Saturday night. Thank you so much. It was an amazing gig. We sold it out, and you've seen some of the footage. And hopefully we will turn that desk recording into a live album at some point, which is pretty exciting. And I'll put a few videos out over the next couple of weeks as well, because we've just got some sort of like shaky handycam stuff that some people took. But it sort of captures the spirit of the gig, which is what it's all about. Anyway, let's answer some questions. Monitoring the AX8 live, normally I'm using in-ears, so that's kind of been the thing recently that I've been really into. But the last couple of gigs, we haven't had a whole lot of time to set up, so Ryan and I have just been getting everything through the in-house wedges on the floor. So it's all AX8 direct. That video of Shine from Cherry Bar that you guys saw, yeah, I literally just plugged my AX8 into the desk, and it was really, really loud on stage, which is always nice, so everyone can hear me. But coming from ears, which I'm kind of used to now, it was kind of cool because there's so much air moving. It's just a little bit harder to control, you know, things when everything's so loud. But other than that, I'll normally go with the in-house wedge if I can't bring my ears. And if the in-house PA sucks, I'll bring a guitar cab. So yeah, pretty simple setup. What am I using to monitor my Axe effects at home? You can see these things. They're my Atom A7X monitors. I've had these for years and they've been really, really good to me. So pretty stoked with those. I've also got a Matrix power amp sitting in my rack if I want to run the Axe with a guitar cab. I sold one of my amps yesterday to an ex-student, my Orange Dark Terror, because I'm just not using it, and I was kind of happy to see it move on to somebody who's going to get a lot of use out of it. And they wanted to hear it through a cab, so I plugged my Marshall 412 in, and I was like, whoa, I haven't stood in front of a cab for so long. Sounded awesome, and when they left, I plugged the Axe FX3 in. I just dialed up the Friedman BEC45 model with nothing else, stock settings, and oh, it's like the best Marshall style sound I've heard in so long in front of a cab. So unfortunately that stuff's really hard to translate over the medium of YouTube, but in the room it was just monstrous, like, you know, when you're feeling your chest vibrate from the low end. So that was kind of a treat for me using a cab. But most of the time, yeah, I go with using the Axe direct to monitors, and I'm really happy with it. What AX8 preset am I using live? For a while I've been using the Bogner Uberschall with an IR that I made. I've done a breakdown of this video, I think in like December last year. But the recording that you heard was actually the Mark IV with a fat switch on. So that one's pretty cool. And then a 2290 delay. I'll do a breakdown of this for the AX8 and for the Axe FX3 pretty soon, because hopefully I should have one of the FC controllers very, very soon, which is pretty exciting. And I'll obviously be doing a bunch of videos with that for the Axe FX3, but hopefully about to make the transition to using the 3 Live, which is really exciting. But I'll put up versions of that preset in the next week at some point. What's that baby blue guitar in the background? This is a Hamer Chaparral, and it's had a custom paint job by Ormsby Guitars. If you want to go check it out, check out my Axe FX3 George Lynch preset where I play this guitar. But yeah, the paint job's pretty sweet. The frets on it are pretty shot, that's the only thing, so it does need a refret. But much like my Hamer Californian, I absolutely love the boomers. This is on ebony, which is unreal. So it's a really bright sounding guitar. I think it's mahogany, and it's got the old really cool Duncan parallel axis in there. And I've got the Duncan, whatever they call their, you know, pickup ring that also lets you do the coil taps and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty sweet paint job by Ormsby Guitars. I got this guitar in 2010, so this is back when he was doing custom work, and now obviously Perry's one of the biggest guitar makers in the world, so he's done very, very well. Congrats. So the Axe FX3 does not have a mic preamp in there, even though it does have XLR inputs. You know, just because something has an XLR input doesn't mean that it's a mic preamp. So obviously, Chris, you realize this and you're looking for a solution. What I would suggest is just picking up a cheap mic pre. You can probably spend like $100. It doesn't have to be the world's most amazing sounding thing, especially if you're doing scratch vocals. Otherwise, you can try setting up your axe with your interface as an aggregate device in Pro Tools. I really need to do a video about this, but that means I need to figure out how to do it. So that's something that I'll hopefully get around to. But my advice would be just get a, even just get like a cheap Behringer mixer that has a mic preamp in it and connect the output of that into input 2 of your Axe FX3 and go from there. That's probably the best way to do it. The red channel on your DSL sounds thin and lifeless. What's going on with mine? Well, mine has been retubed with Electro-Harmonix tubes, so that's probably one factor. I recently did a video experimenting putting a 12 AU7 and a 12 AT7 valve in, I think it's V2 on the DSL, and that makes a big difference. It kind of cleans it up and just adds a bit of clarity, so that might be something that you want to check out there. But yeah, otherwise, maybe there's something wrong with your amp. Go and get it looked at and go and get it serviced. Have a professional look at it and don't rely on my opinion. Will you do a video on how to bend properly? Well, yes, I will. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I'm making some videos with Musicon. So if you want to go and learn some basics like, fretting hand technique and bending technique, you can go and check out some in-depth libraries there. But let me grab a guitar, because this is a big misconception with bending. Conveniently. Everybody does this when they start out trying to bend. Like, you take your finger and, say you want to bend up, then you'll go, and they push their finger like that. Well, if you think about the, biomechanics, right, of the human hand, our hands evolved to grab things. So we're really good at doing that, and not so good at doing that. So using the fingers to push isn't a very efficient way to bend. Essentially, the way I teach all my students to bend, this is not going to be a very in-depth thing, but think about the way you would open a door, like a door handle. You're going to hold it, and then you're going to twist your wrist, and that gives you this, look at that. For a very small amount of wrist twist, you get a huge amount of motion here. Because of the way your arm's designed, right? You have your radius and your ulnar bones, and that's pretty awesome the way you can get a twisty wrist happening there. So my advice is always, if you're on the top 2 strings, bend up, and you want to basically, I'll turn around, the whole point would be doing something, come on, focus in on there. Essentially, it's this motion with your hand. So it's kind of like opening a door. And you're going to find it much easier to do that if you work on that with your bending. Like I said, that's not a very in-depth lesson. If you want a more in-depth thing, anybody out there, you can go and sign up to my Musicon library. So I'm going to be pimping this over the next couple of months because it's a pretty rad startup, and I'm really looking forward to getting into all that kind of stuff. Alright, so this week's lick of the week is going to be a slide riff / lick in the key of D. So we're in open D tuning. What you want to do is tune your guitar, essentially drop D, so D, A, D. Then you're going to go F sharp, A, and D. All up you get a D chord. So, if you have never played slide before, and believe me, I'm not far off because I cannot play slide to save my life. The main kind of technique is, some people like to use their pinky, some people like to use their ring finger, some people like to use their middle finger. I like my ring finger just because the slide kind of fits on there pretty well. But the main thing is and this was a big misconception that I had about slide. When you play a note on the guitar, you normally fret it and you push the string into the fret. You don't do that with the slide, so you don't want to do this. That's not the technique. It's essentially, this is acting like the fret now, so the string just has to touch it. So, and you'll hear that if I do that, or up here, it sounds rubbish. The reason being, the string's going to vibrate on both sides. So what I like to do is, if I'm fretting a note, say the 12th fret with the slide, I will rest my first finger in a line like that as a mute, and then you get... And then you've got a note that doesn't sound like crap. So, and then that way you can add some vibrato by going side to side, not up and down like you would normally. So it's all about playing with a really, really light touch, and that's something I'm nowhere near mastering. I'm a total novice when it comes to slide. So hear that sort of connection there? You want to try to keep the slide as flat as you can. So that kind of thing. But a lick that really got me going, kind of an approach, is because essentially this is like having a guitar in drop D, right? So you can play all your chunky riff stuff. But you can play it with the slide. So the approach would be to basically play a riff and then practice this little lick. I found this has really helped me with my slide playing. You're sliding from 3 to 5 on the second string and then hitting the open string on the top string. So another thing you can do as well, you know, if you playing fingerstyle is cool with this because you can rest your thumb and your middle finger either side of the string that you're playing and get a really clean note like that. And then slide up from 3 to 5 on the top string. And then you're gonna then land it on the 5th of the second string. So or you can use your pick if you're like me and you haven't mastered that sort of proper slide technique, I guess. So something like this. Just that little thing. You're going to hear this with the camera audio, but I'm playing the Tweed Deluxe model on the XFX3 with a bit of reverb. It sounds really grimy. I like it. Let's turn it up a little bit. You can also just pull off to the open string as well. And like I said, some of you might prefer the pinky. Or the middle finger. I'm no good with the middle finger. Who am I joking? I'm no good with the third finger anyway. But that's a really straightforward approach if you want to get into playing a little bit of slide. Sounds super cool on a resonator style guitar. And yeah, there you go. That's kind of the lick of the week. You guys can probably play this a lot better than I can with a little bit of practice. So get that in your system and I'll see you next week.